Welcome. We are live with James B. Hodge and Mark
Yes.
Zanetto. Here we are, James and Mark Save the World, episode 8, I believe. It's been a little bit. We took
Yeah.
a little hiatus for holiday season and everything that goes with it. But we're good. It's good to be back, and it's a Freaky Friday special. We're both wearing glasses. Oh no, you took your glasses off. I put mine. I put on.
Everybody wants to. There we go.
Couple of nerds. Yep, couple of nerds doing a podcast. I like it. That's what we should. That's probably what we should have called the show.
my old man readers. These are just.
Yep.
They're just when I need to read something, guys. I
love it.
Best eyesight, close up, far away, didn't matter. It was better than 2020. It was incredible. People were in awe of my amazing vision, and now I have to hold my phone like an old man. It's embarrassing.
Text like this.
Oh yeah. I resized the stuff on my screen.
Oh, Jesus, that's how you know you're getting real old when you resize it.
Oh god.
Oh man, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, it was good. I got sick on Christmas Day. Quick little story from my holiday vacation. We went to Virginia to Catherine's side of the family and stayed at my sister-in-law's house. And we went to her grandfather's. Her grandmother's family was there from Michigan and Toronto. Lovely people, who proceeded to listen to me piss out of my asshole for at least 6 hours and throw up at least once or twice. Really? And the last time I threw up, I got out of the bathroom and they left. So I was like,
you spread it to them. Hopefully they got sick too. That's the only thing we can really dream for.
That's the only thing I could hope for. But I just said to Catherine, I was like, it made me feel so inadequate that literally, because it was a different table. They were eating at a different table. They're not younger, probably in their 20s. And I walk out and they were putting on their coats, let's get the fuck out of here. This guy's been shitting his brains out for multiple hours.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was a great Christmas. Outside of that, it was fine. But it was a 24-hour bug. Sucked, but again, very relaxing. I didn't have to work. It was a good time. What about you?
Yeah, similar. The whole family was basically sick for the entire Christmas break that the kids were home. The only real we had a trip to New York planned. We had a trip to Myrtle Beach planned, both in that time period between before New Year's, after before Christmas was one, and then before New Year's was the other one, and they both got canceled and rescheduled. And it's just a bummer, man. It was we were just all of us, one of the kids brought the flu home, and then it just spread through the house, and we were just all down for the count. And so it was a rough holiday season. It really was.
Yeah, luckily Victor didn't get sick. Bear was with his mom. He was fine. And Catherine had one, she had to come home from work because she felt sick, but she really didn't have what I had. So that was a good thing.
Yeah.
But no, it was. I'm just saying it was a flu bug light, and I'm appreciative of that because I got to enjoy most of my holiday except for the actual day, Christmas Day. Well, listen, a lot's going on since we last talked.
What's going on?
But because of who you are and because of the circles you've run around with the Chappelles and Donnell Rollins of the world, I have to ask you, and I'll be the moderator on this one because I'll give you my thoughts, but because you're a comedian. I am not a comedian, even though I pretend to be one on TV. What do you think? What do you make of the Katt Williams interview with Shannon Sharpe?
Well, one, I didn't sit there for 3 hours and watch the whole thing. I read through the highlight. I read an article that had the highlights in it. I think the guy had an incredibly successful career. He's at the tail end of a couple of years past the tail end of when he was, selling out big theaters and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And when you go from you got to understand, if you sell out a 5,000 to 6,000 seat venue, you're leaving that night with a check for $250,000. And he was doing that 80 nights a year, at least, probably maybe more than that. So, think about it. That's 20 mil a year just from his stand-up. That's not including what he was making on specials. That's not including none of that. It's just, merch, nothing. Just the checks he got from the big promoters.
Mhm.
Now he's probably filling up a 800 to 1200 seat room 30 times a year, maybe something like that. And so he's gone from 20 million a year to probably something more like a million or two a year if he's really lucky. That's an incredible change in lifestyle. And with that comes anger, bitterness. Um, he didn't get to become a movie star in the way that he thought he was gonna. I think he blames Kevin Hart for some of that because
Oh, yeah, he does.
Kevin Hart was willing to do roles that Katt now, after the fact, claims that he turned down, that he said he wanted rewritten.
Yes.
So, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I know among a lot of the bigger named black comics, it was important to them to never wear a dress.
Mhm.
Others didn't care. They were like, "It's funny, it's a joke, so why
Yeah.
not do the joke?" And I don't really have an opinion one way or other about that. For me, if it's funny, it's funny, and it feels like there's a little bigotry mixed into some of that, anyways. But that's not for me to say. That's their views. I'm not saying that's where they come from. I'm just saying it kind of seems like if it's funny, why not be funny?
No,
But
I'm with you on that.
I,
Let me get to these two highlights. I don't have the video of it, but this is he said, because it wasn't just Kevin. Okay, it wasn't just Kevin.
I know. It was a lot.
He went after Cedric. He went after Steve Harvey. He went after Ludacris. He also said, this is my favorite quote from the Katt Williams interview with Shannon Sharp. He said, "I'm an old man, but right now I can go out and run a sub 4.340 right now." It's like everything you said in this interview is false. I don't give a
80 pounds. I have no idea how fast he is. Now, yes, obviously you can't run a sub 4.340.
I don't give a shit if he weighed 50 pounds.
I know.
He's an elite NFL quarterback. Cornerback is what we're saying.
Right. Yeah.
Come on, bro. Like in his persona always makes me laugh because he's so tiny. Like he acts like there isn't a video of a teenager bodying him and strangling him at a park. Like that's literally like he acts like he's he literally acts like he's Shannon Sharp.
No, he acts like a guy that got bodied by a teenager. That's what he really acts like. I mean, that's the truth of the matter is he acts like somebody that has lived his entire life as this incredibly small person who had an insane amount of success for actually a pretty long period of time.
Oh yeah, I like Katt Williams. I think he's funny as hell.
He's funny. But things didn't work out like he was hoping it was going to work out. And I think now he's got a lot of justifications for why he didn't become the biggest star in the world. Because every upcoming in my age group, which is basically the same as like Chappelle's age group.
Yep.
Coming up, we wanted to get to George Carlin / Richard Pryor levels. And Chappelle managed to pull that off. Rock managed to pull that off. Nobody else really did. Kevin Hart, sort of, but not as a stand-up. Right. I mean, Katt Williams, while I'll say he's definitely one of the 10 best, black stand-ups of all time, probably top 20 all-time stand-ups, period. But he was never quite Pryor. And that was the goal. When that was the goal and you don't get there, that's tough. Rock got there, Chappelle got there. That's it. They're the only two that have gotten to Pryor's level of success as a stand-up and success as a movie actor.
Let me ask you a question off of that. Not about why he wasn't or whatever his justification is, because I'm not getting off this topic. It's too good to not talk about it. So my question is, why do you believe if you go on social media right now, on X or Facebook or whatever, that the majority of people side with Katt Williams over, say, Kevin or Cedric or Steve or Ludacris?
I mean, there's a lot of bitter people out there, like especially look, when I go on social media, most of my friends at this point that I interact with enough that they show up in my feed are other comedians.
Yeah.
Most of those comedians never came close to being even like a Matt Rife level success. And again, same thing. Katt wanted to be Pryor. A lot of these other guys wanted to be Katt Williams level of success or
Sure.
just a headliner, period. And when you set that dream, that goal, and you don't get there, those guys get real bitter and angry sometimes. And so when somebody like Katt Williams comes out and, I think everybody can admit that Cedric the Entertainer is not the greatest comic in the world, but he's fine. He's a serviceable mid-level headliner. He's not crushing it, but he's relatively funny in the movies he's been in. He's pretty good. He's not
What
great.
about the claim from Katt that Cedric stole his best joke and like turned it around in Kings of Comedy?
I have absolutely no idea if that's true. The joke thief thing is tough because there is overlap. Sometimes people write the same joke. And usually, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but usually the jokes that people get the maddest about somebody stealing, you're like, anybody could have written that joke. Like the people that get the most upset about a joke getting stolen, outside of like first 5 years as a comic, man, every joke is precious. Joke thieves are monsters. But like the really good, only this comic could do it jokes that you'll hear from like a Chris Rock or that you'll hear from George Carlin, that kind of thing. Like those jokes are kind of unstealable to some extent. And so while I am probably faster than most to be the comedy police and be like, hey dude, that's not your joke. Or hey dude, somebody else already did that joke. And I try to keep that outside of public consumption only because I think it's usually a mistake when a comic does it and it's rarely intentional. And I think when it is intentional, those comics aren't going to make it far anyways. And I'm sure Cedric wrote a joke very similar to one Katt wrote. Maybe he had heard Katt do the joke and didn't remember having heard him do it. I don't know. It's just
the claim is this. No, just to give you context. So I watched that portion of it. And so Katt says that Cedric saw him do the joke, came backstage in the green room and said, hey man, that joke is fire, whatever, was said, blah, blah, blah. And then Kings of Comedy came out and he changed the joke from Katt. I think, I don't even know what the context of the joke is, but there's a ride, like they're driving in a car somewhere, right? That's Katt's thing. And then Cedric turned it into a spaceship. Like he just tweaked it and said, literally did his joke verbatim and turned the vehicle into like a big,
wasn't there. I have absolutely no idea.
Just saying. I
don't know the joke. Like, so for me, look, if I was sitting down with those two guys and we watched the clips of him and I was like, bro, that's his joke. Like that would be one thing. But in terms of, unless it's somebody like a Carlos Mencia, like that level, I don't know if the public shaming thing is necessary. Like I'm going to give you,
but he's also kind of,
let me give you a good example. One of my very best friends in comedy, one of the comics I respect more than anybody else, is a guy named Mo Alexander.
Yeah, I know Mo. I met him once. I follow him.
An amazing comedian. Mo, a while back, long before the special that Chappelle just put out came out, and before Chappelle was even working on the material for this special, Mo has a joke where he's talking about a knife that identifies as a gun. It's a really good joke. As a matter of fact, his version of that joke is significantly better than what Chappelle did. Mo's joke is better. I love Chappelle. Look, I love both of those guys. I love Mo. I love Dave. I love both of those gentlemen as comedians, as friends, as people that I respect. Very similar jokes. One of Mo's friends had done some shows opening for Chappelle. And I think more than likely what happened is they were probably sitting in the green room. Chappelle was talking about something, and that mutual friend, without even thinking about the fact that it was Mo's joke, probably in reference to Chappelle's bit went, Oh yeah. It was a knife identifying as a gun, like kind of thing. Chappelle heard it, not in the context of seeing somebody doing it on stage. The line got stuck in his head. Now it's on the special that he just put out.
Mhm.
I think that is. I would put money on the fact that that is exactly how that happened. That it. I do not think that Dave Chappelle consciously went out of his way to steal Moe's joke. I think Dave, in a roundabout way, probably did hear a mutual friend of theirs mention the joke, and that mutual friend isn't me, by the way. And like, because when Mo saw Dave do the bit, he was at that show because his friend was opening that show and went to the show. So
Yeah, I gotcha.
and like, and so Mo reached out and was like, "Hey, look, what's this is kind of a thing." And it never really got cleared up as best I know, and it still ended up on Chappelle's special. But again, so I'm not sure what happened with that in terms of how they worked it out. But I don't think consciously, with any ill intent, Chappelle lifted that line.
Sure.
But I am fairly sure that that line got to him from where Mo had written it, and the line works perfectly in Dave's joke, even though Mo's joke's actually a better joke because it's more polished and whatnot. But that line works perfectly. I mean, when you're talking about the situation that Chappelle was in at the Hollywood Bowl, and a guy attacked him on stage with what looked like a gun and turned out to be a knife, that's
Yep.
especially with Chappelle, and as much as he likes to do trans jokes, like it's that. I mean, it's fitting. So it's a tough situation to find in, and so like the Cedric and Katt, and I don't know. I think Katt believes that that's what happened. I think Cedric probably doesn't remember anything about any of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how successful make you forget about things, maybe things that you've done, even whether it was maliciously or not. But I mean, Ced's on network television. He's making bukus of money with that neighborhood show on CBS. It's probably
Yeah,
already in
yeah,
syndication. Steve Harvey's literally owns Miss Universe pageants. Like he's, these. I feel
yeah.
like my analytical brain says Cat Williams, just like you, is a bitter old comic who is just a comic. It has some
You're
really
saying I'm
funny
a bitter
roles.
old comic? Is that what you just said? No.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, your beard is. I mean, kind of. No, I mean, I just feel like he's a bitter old comic that has had some really funny bits of roles in different movies, but has never really carried a movie. And probably because, I mean, as Kevin Hart's put it, he's hasn't shown up. He said, I mean, the thing that makes me laugh is like he comes out and says things like, "Well, I don't do drugs. I've never done drugs." It's like, dude, come on, man. Like we all know that you were doing some shit. Like you're trying to tell me that he's been sober this whole time? That's not
Look,
that these are
who gives a shit if he was or not? Like, look this
because it goes to the heart of all of the things that people believe. If you lie about one thing, but then you say that you're not a liar, but you're literally lying through your teeth by
no,
looking in the camera.
totally agree with you.
I don't care. I'm just saying.
Everything you're saying is factually accurate. I'm not disagreeing with any of your points. My take on it is, like, for me, my take on this whole thing is it's silly that people are making such a big thing out of what Katt said and did in that interview and not seeing it within the context of what's happening. Like, didn't he go after like Monique? Like, wasn't that
No,
one?
he went off at Tiffany Haddish.
Yeah, that's well, it was enough. Okay, anyways, but yeah, well, to the Tiffany Haddish stuff again.
Yeah,
Tiffany Haddish, her career got to where it got to because Kevin Hart helped her get there.
of course.
There's no insult in
And
that.
no, she admits that. There's no problem there.
My career got to where it got to in part because of guys like Tom Simmons, guys like Chappelle, guys like
Yep.
So it's. I mean, everybody gets lifted up. Katt got lifted up too. I promise you that other comics helped him get to the level of success that he got to. Now, what he's not doing is sitting there doing the list about people who helped him get there. Instead of being
No,
thankful, he's bitter and angry, and he doesn't have the money he used to have, and he's probably having tax issues because when you were making 20 million a year and now you're making 2 million a year, you were paying 8 million a year in taxes. Maybe you got behind a couple of years. Now you're looking at this massive. This is just an assumption because it happens. I'm only saying this because what happens to most athletes and entertainers who get to a certain level of success is that eventually the tax man turns into the enemy. They can't get caught up on their taxes because they're still spending like they were when they were making that money. But so maybe, and again, maybe, don't know for sure, but maybe it's stuff like that. There's a lot of anger, a lot of bitterness, and it's controversy. How else is Katt Williams going to get back to selling, making 20 million a
arena?
Year? Yeah. He's going to have to be relevant again. And the easiest way to get relevant is to say something controversial and something shitty. You go look at everything, any comic that has been talked about on a large scale in the last year. Matt Rife, controversial jokes. Chappelle, controversial jokes. You know whose special didn't get as much buzz as everybody else's? Chris Rock's. Even though it was better, he didn't do as many edgy jokes, so it didn't get. Look at some brilliant comedians like Roy Wood Jr. Roy Wood Jr. is as good as anybody in the game right now, but he doesn't get that media firestorm, and Netflix loves it because it promotes viewers. Whether you love it or hate it, people go watch it.
And listen, and to Kevin Hart's credit, he literally put out a tweet or whatever. I don't even know. Do you call it tweets now? Even though it's X, that's something that we need to flesh out at some point. We need to save the world on that. Do we call it tweets or X's or whatever? So he put out a tweet that was just like, "Hey," he's like, something about like, a line from his movie. It's literally a 30-second spot of his new movie on Netflix called Lift. It's basically directed at Katt, and then he tagged him and said, I guess you got to get all your anger out, brother. He's like, but don't forget to go watch my movie on Netflix. So, like, listen, Kevin is funny. I don't like him particularly as a stand-up. I just don't. Like, he's not my cup of tea. He's got funny bits, don't get me wrong. But his movies are they're decent. You know what I mean? Like, they're mindless fun, essentially, right? So,
look,
it is what it is. He makes a lot of money. Who cares?
He's not. I don't think there's anything worth criticizing about that guy, other than No. And again, there was a point in my comedy career where it was really fun for us all to sit around and be like, who's not funny? Kevin Hart and all that. Whatever, man.
Right.
These guys are they're just printing money at this point.
So real quick before we jump off the subject, because it's about Kevin and it's about Dave Chappelle. I was listening to Two Bears, One Cave, and they're trying to do a 5K in May where anyone can go, you register for it, but they're trying to get as many comics to go as possible and like put on a show. And so they were like, so Bert is Captain FaceTime. Like he'll be on a show and be like, FaceTime this person. And they'll be like, hey, we're doing Two Bears. And so he's like, dude, FaceTime Dave Chappelle. And he was just like, and you could just feel Tom being like, no, I don't want to ruin my relationship with Dave Chappelle just because you want to do a fucking bit on. And he's like, dude, do Chris Rock. He's like, no, I'm not fucking calling these people on the air. So they did end up trying to FaceTime Dave, who did not pick up. And the most famous, they had a bunch, Stabby, all their buddies. But then they FaceTimed Louis, who didn't pick up. And then they texted Louis, and he was just like, hey, man, can you come on a FaceTime? And he said, I'm with Tom. And he wrote back, Tom who? And it was just a really funny thing. And then he actually did come on. He was just like, not in a million years am I coming to do a 5K, so go fuck yourself. But it was just a funny bit, and it reminds me of, like, all of this. Like, some of these guys are just like, they're, I hate to say it, they're normal people. And I know you're friends with Dave Chappelle, so, like, I'm not saying something that you don't know. But, like, even if I was like,
I haven't been in the same
okay,
several years. So.
Again, you've worked with him, whatever you want to say it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to pump up your status for the sake of our show. I'm just saying, like, you've literally opened for him. You've been there.
Do you want me to FaceTime him?
I would love for you to FaceTime him. But what I'm saying is like, I would never be like, hey man, I'm a huge Dave Chappelle fan. Can you can you like get him in touch with me? Like that's just like not something you would do because you're not a douchebag, and like you would respect the relationship. So I just thought that was funny. Anyway, to move on, transition from this, it's another feud that we're going to talk about. Oh boy, it's been a fun few days of watching some of this shit. Aaron Rodgers, yay, was on the Pat McAfee show, which is simulcast on ESPN and YouTube and everything that goes with it. I have zero issue with Aaron Rodgers. I think he's kind of a pretentious douchebag just personally, but he's also like, there's no law against being a pretentious douchebag. There just isn't.
Right.
You know, he makes a lot of money. He's a 4-time NFL MVP, all of that stuff, right? So he has this obsession of going on the McAfee show and talking about the vaccine and also talking about the Epstein list that some of which has come out and some of it's been redacted, all that stuff. And he made a claim that someone that actually works at ESPN, ABC affiliate, on a show on ESPN, that Jimmy Kimmel is nervous about being on that Epstein list. My question to you is this: as the resident comedian of this show, what is the difference between Jimmy Kimmel going on his late night show and making jokes about Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Rodgers making a joke about Jimmy Kimmel on ESPN?
I mean, in theory, nothing. In practice, Aaron Rodgers is, look, he's a great football player. He's an incredible quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is the dumb jock that thinks he's smart.
For sure.
Jimmy Kimmel is the smart comedian who thinks he's athletic. Like it's like they're very different guys.
The same person.
Like kind of the same person. I'm not a regular viewer of Jimmy Kimmel's show or anything.
Sure. Yep.
But I do think I think he's funny. He was never really a comedian anyways. He's always just sort of been a host that does jokes that are written for him. And you know, a lot of people have some anger at him. So, you know, Aaron Rodgers being one of them. So of course he's gonna take shots back. It's petty. I'm here for it though. I'm popular.
No. But I guess my point is like in
this good show.
So you said in theory there's no difference, right? So why would someone like Jimmy Kimmel, who essentially has a platform to make fun of anybody in any context and hide behind the guise of it's just parody, like I'm a late night host, versus the normal person who, listen, say what you want about Pat McAfee's show, and I love it. I think Pat McAfee's fantastic for ESPN. It's a stuffy company. He comes in, he literally has a ticker on the bottom line that says anything we say on this program does not reflect my bosses. So like he has an out to basically just be a wrestling host, right? Just a heel, whatever. And I think it's good for the brand of ESPN. ESPN has become, entailed with like Disney and all the issues we've talked about with them. And it's just there's a show where mindless dummies like myself can go and watch interviews that aren't about politics or they don't really have. But then he brings on Aaron Rodgers and has the opposite thing happen. So he has to apologize. So I think it's kind of a funny juxtaposition. But why is it not? Again, I'm going off track. But again, you're Jimmy Kimmel. You're protected by I'm a comedian, a late night host, and you have this ability to kind of just parody. Versus Aaron Rodgers, who's basically on a podcast. I mean, it is a podcast that's on TV that he basically riffs and says some outlandish shit. Like, what's the difference?
I mean, well, okay. One, the accusation that Jimmy Kimmel, as best I know, has ever made about Aaron Rodgers doesn't involve pedophilia.
No.
Aaron Rodgers was basically saying Jimmy Kimmel is about to get outed as a child molester. Like, and again, I don't know. I've never been to Epstein Island. Apparently,
you
now
haven't?
These lists have come out. I have met some of the people who have. But like I not knowing at the time, and now if I see them, I'll probably go, oh.
Hey.
But I don't think it's some crazy, like horrible thing that Aaron Rodgers did. But at the same time, I would side more with Jimmy Kimmel in this context just because Aaron Rodgers is the dumb athlete that thinks he's smart, and he got his feelings hurt because he got called out for being exactly what he is. Jimmy Kimmel made fun of him for it, and now he is sort of bitterly being like, "Oh yeah, well he's a child molester." Like that's not
It's a
exactly the
jump.
same.
It's a leap. It's kind of a
Yeah,
leap. Uh,
I mean maybe
no,
he
I,
heard.
I,
Maybe that'll. Maybe, but hey, you never know. Maybe Jimmy Kimmel was a regular on Epstein's Island. I have no idea.
the
I mean,
only thing that I've seen about that is that is that Jimmy Kimmel's chef is going to be outed because there's pictures of him with Epstein, and that is the connection. And so again, Aaron Rodgers and many people make those leaps that if you employ anybody that
does
has
that
any
mean that
association.
does that mean that Epstein and Jimmy Kimmel, like, is this the only chef in the world that can perfectly like flambe like a freshly
Mhm.
circumcised like peanut? Like what? Like what is this like? Like what? Like is that the deal? Is there like some cannibalism involved? Is it? They're not only having sex with
Uh,
the kids, they're also eating parts of them, and this chef is the only one that can make that magic happen and make it taste
I don't
perfect.
know.
He specially
I don't
grows
know.
like and it's fertilized with like I don't know the breast milk of Indonesian women or something. Like what possible? Like, who gives a shit?
No, I just think I again. It
I'm
just
with you though. It's
there's
hilarious.
there's an obsession. There is this wild, weird obsession that the entire world is a pedophile ring, and all of Hollywood is involved. Everything, everything that is in Hollywood is a cabal, and goes back to the Cat Williams thing. One of my favorite things he said about Ludacris was that him and Ludacris were at an Illuminati meeting. Okay,
Yeah.
true story. This is what he said,
I mean, what do you
and
think
they
that's
had to make a
supposed
choice.
to
Yeah,
represent? It's
yeah. He's like, and they had to choose between which black person they were going to let in and give $200 million over 10 years. And Ludacris was who they chose because he did those Fast X movies or Fast and Furious
right.
movies.
Look, man. I was offered membership myself. Like
Were
I,
you?
I went to a couple of early meetings. Honestly, I'm not really into the chanting thing, so I passed. But like
I think you're talking about AA. I don't think you're talking about what they're talking about.
I don't know. It was weird. There were a lot of women in masks with no clothes on and stuff. It was kind of strange. Have you ever seen Eyes Wide Shut? It was a lot like that.
Yes, yes. The only thing I've ever been to, and I'll tell you a quick story of when I was in. Did we just freeze?
I
I think we
don't
just
think so.
froze. No, we didn't.
I
Oh,
don't know.
we froze for a hot second. It's all good. No, when I was in LA, and this is in 2003, we went to a party, a couple of my roommates, and up in the Hollywood Hills, and it was this huge house, TV, movie room, pool, everything, like exactly how you would see it in the movies, right? People are outside drinking, hanging out a good time, and then in every room there was a bowl of cocaine that you could just take. Like I'm talking like a
Yeah,
serving bowl, not
yeah.
a hey man, can I get a bump? Like do whatever you want. And there were
Okay.
people
I've
having
never
sex
seen like
over
a
here,
salad.
like
I have seen like a small cereal bowl at a house, and there were multiple rooms where there was a cereal bowl amount of
yeah.
cocaine on each table. I have been.
I would say because and this is again, this is 20 something years ago, but it reminded me of, and it looked like a, like, like the gravy boats that you pour gravy in on
Yeah,
Thanksgiving, but crystal.
yeah,
And I would say it was like two like big handfuls. Like that's how I would like that.
yeah,
And like, but there was 10 rooms
yeah.
of this. It was not
Look,
a,
let's be
hey, this
clear.
is the,
I don't care what level. Look, the idea that there is some sort of cabal out there that rounds up kids and all this kind of stuff. That is, as far as I know, nonsense. What is absolutely 100% unarguably real is that incredibly successful, wealthy men, there is a pretty large percentage of them who for years had absolutely no issue, and sometimes it was their preference to hook up with 16, 17, 15-year-old girls that thought that by meeting this guy, they were going to get access to power and success. Those guys used those girls for sex and threw them away. And there are certainly people who were enabling that. Giselle Maxwell, the Epstein's lady friend, very much was involved in that, and basically allowing access to finding these young women and bringing them. There's a reason why every billionaire's yacht has a bunch of girls that have never coded anything in bikinis on the boat, and it's because these older guys, they have access to it. They're going to take advantage of it. It's gross, it's creepy, and I certainly wouldn't want any young woman I, care about or am related to have anything to do with that. But it's a tale as old as time. It's not going to stop. It's not going to go away. And hopefully people will just keep outing dudes that do that kind of shit. Women too, because there are also incredibly successful women who do the same thing to young women. I mean, and nobody cares about the young guys that stuff happens to. So
No, because why do you think that is? Why do you think men like us don't typically care when it's like
unless it's gay stuff. If it's gay stuff, then
yes. If it's straight, if it's a woman and a man, we're like,
yes,
pretty awesome.
Yeah, people are like, look at him, or good for him. Like, you look at him having sex with that MILF and all. Like, really? You don't think he's also being emotionally damaged severely by at 16 years old hooking up with a famous, rich 38 to 52-year-old woman? You don't think that's doing some damage to him? Okay.
I do, but I think I don't know. I just think there is such a double standard with that. It's crazy, but well, I think we've exhausted our feud talk for today. So we got the Katt Williams versus Kevin Hart in the world, and then we got Aaron Rodgers versus Jimmy Kimmel.
But like I said, I both think they're ridiculous and silly, and also it's endlessly entertaining. It is, and I hope they all are getting good promotion for whatever it is that they're about to release, like so that they can now they're in the press and they're getting the media coverage they need. And at this point, if Netflix came to me and was like, "Hey, we'll give you $4 million to do a special," I'm probably going to spend a few months writing a couple of jokes that are going to get me canceled, that aren't going to actually get me canceled, that are just going to make people talk all this trash about me, and then watch my Netflix special, and then I'll get another Netflix special. Like I'd do it too. I would. I'd go and write that super edgy joke that's not actually edgy at all, and go do it and watch everybody get mad.
It's pretty funny.
It's at this point, it's ridiculous to think it's anything else. Do you think Chappelle really has 4 specials worth of trans jokes, and because he really gives a shit? No, of course not. But it's good promo.
What I loved about his special to kind of talk about it very briefly is
the new one, the one that just the Dreamer.
Yeah, though it wasn't my favorite, but I don't care because I think he's more of to me he was storytelling. He had jokes obviously, but he's at this point in his career, it's like he's a multi-millionaire. What are you going to talk about? You know what I mean? So you're talking about your life, you're talking about the human condition, whatever. So I think the juxtaposition was just like, I love punching down, so I'm going to make fun of handicapped people.
It's like everybody. Like, I love the fact that Dave Chappelle decided, I'm just gonna. Everybody says you can't, so I'm gonna do.
So I will.
Yeah, and it's if the easiest way to get cheap applause is to offend liberals.
Oh, easily.
Because all the moderates laugh, all the conservatives laugh. And so, it's for as long as comedy has existed, it has also worked the other way. You can get incredibly cheap laughs from liberals by making fun of conservatives. Like it works both ways. It's whatever.
For sure.
I just keep writing the jokes you write. If they get laughs, keep doing them.
Without a doubt.
Who gets offended by a joke?
A lot of people do, unfortunately.
Yeah. Are they? Or are they just, bots helping promote Chappelle's new special.
That's also true. Hey, I've also come to this agreement with myself, essentially, that if I'm on X, because I post a lot of stuff about the Giants and sports related stuff, and sometimes I'll delve into politics and things like
Yeah, a
that.
lot of
If
racism
someone,
is weird. Like, is
a
that
lot of
how
racism.
is
Yep,
that you're trying to promote your?
that's
It's like, seriously, guys, there's some really edgy stuff on there.
there's some edgy shit out there. No, so when I post something, if someone gives me shit, I look at their username, and if it's just something that they've made up or whatever, it's usually a person. But I always have this rule: it's a troll farm or a person that's in prison. If they have the 7 or 8 digits that you would get as your inmate number in prison.
Yeah.
So and the best is when I'll retweet it and then post like, "Hey man, when are you getting out? When are you getting out of prison? Like, what are you in for?" And it just infuriates that person even more. And they're like, "Oh yeah, I'll fuck you up." And I'm like, "Oh, violent offender. Got it. Cool. All right. So 5 years parole."
Is your day job arranging Russian brides? Like,
I like that. That's good. I'll have to use that. Anything to just. I love to just get a rise out of people. Like, and my favorite is when someone says, "Hey man, you're getting a little worked up." It's like I'm literally like on my phone or in my desk, like taking a 30-second break from my job to type something. I think I'm like pounding sand because you don't like my take. Oh no, I'm so upset. Those are my favorite. And I just keep egging those people on. It's the best.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. People think it's a waste of time. I call it a hobby. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, look, everybody needs a pastime, and yours is being a football edgelord. So
yeah, it's fun. Now, what's this? I don't know if you saw this. You may not be able to say the name I'm about to put on our screen, but I want to know what announcers are going to do if this kid is playing for West Virginia next year and they have to call his name because of the position he plays in football. So check out this. That's a real person.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess
I love it.
Say his name, right? Like, what else do you do?
They have to, right? I mean, I did an all name team for a Giants. like maybe the N is silent.
I mean, as long as the K is not silent, I feel like you could say that name if it was your job to say it. I'm not going to say it because I don't want somebody to take this clip and edit it. But
yeah, no, same. That's why it's a visual, and you do what you want with it. Anyone that's watching this, but I myself like and then a buddy of mine.
Is that a gnome named Gnome situation?
I'll take it down. But so I was joking around with some comics that on Facebook, and I was like, he should change his last name to Naysayer because that was the thing that was on the college football playoff. Yeah. Let a naysayer know, and so every white guy in America is like, okay, I could say Naysayer. Interesting.
Well, have you I don't know if we've talked about this, but have you the new Twitter troll way of saying
Fowler, right? Didn't you tell me that?
Yeah.
I would guarantee Naysayer is jumping up that list because
hashtag Naysayer.
There's a hard N there. Okay.
Yeah. Is that Naysayer? Naysayer.
But the reality is if you're Kirk Herbstreit, you got to be shitting your pants. Like, what are you supposed to say if this kid's like the tight end for as a freshman and he catches a winning touchdown?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe
Noah for a touchdown.
What was his first
number
name?
13. Yeah. Noah.
Number 10. Number 10. That's a number 10.
Mr. Noah.
Yeah.
I laughed so hard when I saw that.
It's going to be I was doing an interview before the game with Noah's mom, and she's a fine woman. She's a wonderful. They put a lot of work into raising him to turning him into the good young man. You know what, old number 10, I'm rooting for that kid to have a long career. We're secretly they're like, oh God, I hope he breaks his tibia tomorrow.
Honestly, they hope that he's a walk-on and he never plays. That's the thing. Official visit to West Virginia officially canceled. But I'll tell you what, the state of West Virginia is going to have a wonderful time saying that name, because I would imagine that they will have no problem.
Oh God, have you ever? Do you remember? I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Kuhn, the NFL player.
Yeah.
And when he would, score, everybody in the stands would go, Kuhn.
Yeah, it's spelled Cuhn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom Simmons has a bit about that, about like him in college football, that I hope everyone will go look up. It's very similar to this area, and Tom's bit is hilarious. So I look up Tom Simmons' bit about football players and their names being called from the stands.
I'll clip this and send it to Tom and be like, "Hey, I got a new guy that you can do a bit about."
Yeah, you're like, nope. He's like,
nope, not me.
The stands.
Maybe I'll send it to JD. JD can do it.
Yeah, his name is actually Kanoa Charles. Yeah, and it's like, but it's all K's. Like it's.
Oh my God! I saw that and I was like, I have to talk about it on the pod. So, yeah, that'll be an interesting one. He'll be a freshman next year in college football, so we'll have to keep you posted. But there are some crazy college football names.
Is the internet, is the bots that clear stuff out, like the algorithm? They're gonna pull stuff off that has his name, and if they do let it through, are people going to start using that as a way to say it by throwing the K in front of it? And it'll be interesting.
That's an interesting.
We'll
really, it comes back to. I just think at some point people are just going to have to deal with people saying that word and just beating the shit out of people who do.
Yeah,
that's just like.
I'm a big fan of free speech. So if you want to say that word, you say it. And I'm also a big fan of someone punching you in the face for saying that word.
Absolutely. So, I honestly think that there should be no consequence for the person that beats your ass when you say it, especially if it's in a derogatory way. Even if it's not and you didn't even mean it. Oops. Well, you get punched in the face, buddy. That's just kind of.
I'm going to arrest you for saying that word, but I do think the person you say that to or about should be able to walk up and punch you right in the dick.
Oh man. Yeah. I totally lost my train of thought after that, because it just the world we live in is hysterical, and it just gets funnier by the day.
It really does. Good for the world for being ridiculous.
So I have to tell you, I know we haven't really talked about NBA yet today, which is perfectly fine because it sucks. The NBA.
Yes.
We talked last time we talked about the ratings of the NBA.
Right.
Did you see the ratings for NFL football on Christmas versus the ratings of NBA basketball?
I'm pretty sure.
Which is supposedly but how many times better?
Right, but again, how many basketball games are there a year? How many football games are there a year? It's of course there's going to be a lot more viewers because it's more scarce.
No, it's because the product is better and people are more interested in football than they are in basketball.
If there were only 17 NBA games a season and then in a single elimination playoffs, you don't think people would watch the basketball games with closer ratings? Because the reason I say that is the NCAA tournament has ratings on par with the NFL. And it's because it's single
during March, yeah. But there's also no football. I can guarantee you that if there was football in March, NFL football during the NCAA tournament, it would dip their ratings considerably because the NFL is a machine. People play fantasy football, they bet. There's so much more that goes into it. And the NBA, even though you have people who are degenerate gamblers who bet on the NBA and do fantasy football, it's not even close. It's not even close. If you watch it, dude, if you turn on the only people that cover NBA basketball are the major ESPN FS1 shows, the top shows, because they kind of have to create the controversy of, is LeBron the GOAT? Can Giannis, blah blah blah. It's how do they relive their resume, or how do they book their legacy and all that stuff. there's no one like truly talking about basketball, like substantively talking about basketball.
I have a theory. I have a theory about why why football is somewhat more entertaining than the NBA, especially in terms of like watching it on TV. Is an NFL game in the final 3 minutes gets significantly more exciting than it has been for the whole game. If the game's close and one of the, and like the team, you're trying to get a defensive stop. You're trying to, you got to go 80 yards. And you actually see teams do that on not a crazy regular basis, but enough that it keeps you interested. Where with basketball, because there's no elam ending, the last 2 minutes of a game turns into this 8 to 10 minute free throw competition. That's not particularly fun to watch. And so to me, I think the only thing the NBA would need to do to take over as the preeminent sport, really probably in the world, is to go to more of an elam ending type conclusion to games. I think that would and play.
I don't disagree.
Games is too many. They should probably play something like 48 to 62, something along those lines.
Yeah, I don't disagree that at the end of the game there are issues with how things are going. But I don't know if you should. What's that?
Especially with all the replays now, and review this. It's hard to watch the fourth quarter of a basketball game sometimes, which is bad because that's really the best basketball up until you get to the let's settle this with free throws point. Because fourth quarter basketball is amazing. Those guys are throwing everything out at that point. They're exhausted. It's entertaining. It's exciting. And then we get to the final, 2 minutes to final 5 seconds. And it just turns into this boring free throw contest that takes 10 to 20 minutes to go through.
I wouldn't be in favor of doing an elam ending, but what I would be in favor of is making it a quicker scenario. So like in the G League, if you get fouled in the last 2 minutes, one free throw is worth 2 points. So like you penalize the team that's doing the fouling. So essentially, like if you go to the free throw line, you miss, that's it. You only get one. It's one free throw. It's not sitting there and you're shooting two, and it's only for the last 2 minutes of the game. I'm pretty sure that is. So maybe something like that, where it's like if you're doing that, there's.
I'm wearing my Greensboro.
What's that?
I'm wearing my Greensboro sweatshirt. I love G League.
Shout out Angelo Allegri, UNCG alum, on the Greensboro Swarm. Good for him. I really think there's some validity to that with the end of the game, but also conversely, NFL football, it's increasingly more difficult to watch as an older person and you because of what we used to watch as kids. And so we're watching these games where the quarterback gets sacked and it's seemingly innocuous play. And then you go look back and there's a flag because the defensive player landed on him. Oh, I'm sorry. This is tackle football. Like I understand the helmet to helmet stuff, the launching, all of that. All of those things should stay into place. There should be no targeting of players, all that stuff. But football is a violent sport. Keep it that way. Like this is what Americans love. We want to see them kick the shit out of each other. We want to see them dropping them on a bed of pillows. Like what is that?
Like football, either for me at this point in my life, I would either want football to become as the players are as protected as they are in an NBA game, or I want to see them breaking each other's arms. Like because the current configuration of football is nothing like could you imagine what would happen if, without knowing the new rules, Ronnie Lott was just put into an NFL game right now? He would
forget about Ronnie Lott, who's one of the hardest hitters ever. Just throw fucking mid Ryan Clark, who used to decapitate people in 2003.
Just
he wasn't even the best safety. What about Lawrence Taylor?
Well, he did get a penalty when he fucked up.
He broke Theismann's leg?
Yeah, that was a flag on that.
He snapped his leg in half. By the way, quick Joe Theismann story.
He grabbed his leg and he and bit it. That's
quick Joe Theismann story. Shout out.
That was
my buddy Mike. Joe Theismann was at his house for some birthday party, like the kids. His granddaughter was there or whatever, and I know Joe Theismann through mutual people, whatever. He's, kind of in person to person, he's a nice guy. I don't know anything about him really. And so I went up to him, hey, how are you? And Mike, who owns the house, was just like, hey, I'm a Giants fan. And he was like, good for you. And he was just like, you know who my favorite player is? And Joe was like, let me guess. He was like, Lawrence Taylor. He just walked away. Fucking asshole.
You know what?
Original.
The greatest moment of my life was the worst moment of yours.
So yeah, I mean, he's got to run into that all the time. But it was just, I mean, he couldn't say anything because he's like a guest in his home.
I mean,
I'll be respectful.
Like my two favorite players all time are still Lawrence Taylor and Barry Sanders. So
yeah, did you watch that documentary on Barry?
I still haven't watched it yet. I need to. My plan is to watch it when I've got nothing else going on because I'm gonna watch the shit out of it, and I'll probably be watching it multiple times. But no, like when I was a kid, I went out of my way, and it was hard back then to see Lions games. If one of my friends' parents had satellite, then I was going to there. Like it was like Barry Sanders it was crazy what that guy could do. Like I've never seen anything like it in sports where a single player had this physical advantage over everyone else in that way. It's crazy.
And I know you probably know this, but when you were done with the documentary, go on, whether it's Wikipedia or just look up Barry Sanders college stats.
Oh yeah,
they talk about, but in the documentary, not to give anything away, they talk about how there are multiple times he sat in like the fourth quarter and still had almost 3,000 yards rushing the year he won the Heisman.
Yeah,
and he also was like the best is like the only shitty stat he has in all of college football is he like threw the ball 4 times and only completed 2 of the passes, and people were like, that was like a big joke on the internet when the documentary came out. Well, what a loser! Only 50% completion percentage. Piece of shit.
I don't know. Watching him play football is the craziest thing I'd ever seen as a kid. It just blew my mind.
Oh yeah.
And same thing with Lawrence Taylor though. Like I'd never seen a linebacker / defensive end that could just toss. I mean, again, he was on a lot of coke, so like maybe that helped, but just tossing offensive linemen out of the way.
He just made me think of someone that we both know well. I just saw one of his bits. I got to clip some of Jordan Fisher's stuff one day and just kind of give him a shout out on the show. Not that he needs it, but but he's very funny. And he was talking about he was on the subway in New York and some guy just lit up in front of him and was crack. And he was like, let me tell you, you haven't seen anyone do crack before. That shit hits fast. It's just the way his delivery was great because it was immediate. But I bet you Lawrence Taylor went to the locker room at halftime and smoked a little crack every once in a while to get that edge.
I don't know what he did, but I'm glad he did it. It's like,
absolutely.
I feel like if I had been like 12 when like McGuire and Sosa were doing their thing, or when Bonds was knocking off what they had done, I feel like if I'd been a little kid, I'd be really bummed out watching baseball now that people aren't as juiced. Because that shit was exciting. Yeah.
It was fun. It was fun. Like to see them on at the All-Star game when they're all wearing their cutoffs and their fucking arms are like the size of people's thighs. Like people don't realize like
what's going on up here?
Yeah, you guys don't realize like these were like long people you see on IG that are like long drive competitors and weightlifters. That's what baseball players used to look like.
For a little while. There was a nice,
a pretty nice window of like 86 to 2000, essentially, maybe 82, because you had the Canseco McGuire years during that time.
I don't think
I'm telling you, man,
came into the league juicing. I think
no, he was country strong, but then when he got with Canseco, they did some stuff. Yeah. We'll end this because then we're getting up on an hour. But if you haven't already purchased this or get it on your Spotify or whatever, Lonely Island did an entire Bash Brothers record.
Yeah.
And it's literally just songs about the two of them that are made up. Dude, if you haven't listened to it, it's the fucking funniest.
That's great.
12 songs you'll ever. It's it's Lonely Island. They did the Dick in a Box and that kind of stuff, but it's hysterical and it's totally worth whatever it is, 99 cents or whatever. It's hysterical. I play every once in a while. It's just on a shuffle, and it'll be like this like really cool beat, and it's just like it's all like Jose Canseco, Mark McGwire shit. It's funny as hell.
Excellent. Okay, quick question before we go. Should Barry Bonds,
Yes.
Mark McGwire, and Sammy Sosa be in the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
Agreed.
Why do you agree? What's your reasoning?
My primary reason is that even if you just took Barry Bonds' career pre any accusations of steroids, he already had a Hall of Fame career. And I think the same is probably true for Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. At least McGwire. Maybe not Sosa, but definitely McGwire. I mean,
I'm gonna give you the Danny DeVito. No.
I mean,
Sammy Sosa was not a Hall of Famer before then.
No, but
however, neither was McGwire. No, neither was McGwire.
True. That's not true. Like how many All-Star teams did he make in his first 6 years? It was a lot.
Yeah, but
do you think?
Okay, so this is the.
You think he was juicing by his second or third year?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Bonds was.
I don't think that's just. I know that. So my point is like I agree with you, but I also have to say this as a caveat. Pitchers were juicing too, so the playing field was even. That's the thing. So if you have juice head here, and they're going against each other, the more talented player won. That's the first thing. The second point is, who gives a shit? There was nothing against it. All the writers knew. So the people that are voting are fucking hypocrites too, because they all knew it was happening. Hey, what's that bottle of pills you have up there? Oh yeah, it's a supplement. Yeah, okay, dude. Yeah. We know it's steroids. Come on. Yeah. And then lastly, it doesn't matter whether it enhanced your physique. You still have to fucking hit the ball. You still have to. The only thing that it did, in my opinion, because these guys still have to have. You talked about your eyes earlier. You still have to have phenomenal hand-eye coordination and fast twitch muscles, and these dudes all have that. And it just helped them recover faster, which was a big part of baseball anyway. They didn't get rid of greenies, the amphetamines all these guys were taking throughout the year. Like, it doesn't matter, dude. Like, Ty Cobb murdered someone and was a known racist, and he's in the fucking Hall of Fame. Who gives a shit? Yeah. Just put the guy in the Hall. Put them all in.
And I think the only other thing that I think people should emphasize is I think Greg Maddux should get more credit for his pitching career, simply because he wasn't a power pitcher, but he was that dominant when everyone he was throwing to was great. Do you remember how big Fred McGriff was even before he got to Atlanta? Like when he was still playing in Toronto, like the size of some of those guys. And
that most of them Atlanta Braves pitching staff, him and Glavine, because Glavine wasn't didn't have a big fastball. He was a nibbler as well.
Smoltz was the best.
Smoltz was more of a Smoltz was more of a flamethrower, but at the same time, when he got hurt and he went to the bullpen, he came back. He has an incredible career too. You're a starter. You're a dominant starter. You blow your arm out. You go and be a closer. You're a dominant closer, and then you come back as a starter. I mean, fucking guy was incredible. But no, I agree. Greg Maddux won. Tom Glavine too. Like,
right? It's insane.
It is. But I mean, maybe it's because they're guys weren't very clutch. I think if we go back and look at some of their issues, but it is insane they at least win like 2 titles. You know what I mean? Like one here and then a hiatus and then one in like the 4th or 5th year. It is pretty strange. Anyway,
my dad
we saved a bunch of things
and an Atlanta Braves fan at the same time.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
My dad was a Buffalo Bills and Atlanta Braves fan at the same time. Do you know how hard
your dad
was for him?
I didn't even think about it like that. That's great.
No wonder he was so violent.
Speak for your. I may know the answer to this question. Speak for your late father and say, would your dad have been at a tailgate jumping onto a table like Bill's Mafia, but with it being on fire? Would your dad be down with that?
He would have been the one squirting the lighter fluid and lighting it. He wouldn't have done it himself, but he would have been encouraging the person that was like trying to work up the nut to do it. He would definitely be like, "Do it, come on! What are you afraid?" All right. In honor of my great father, this episode has now been a full tribute to my sad dad in the 90s.
Well, my dad's still alive, so tribute to you, buddy. Let good for dads everywhere. This is James and Mark saving the world once again. We'll be back
We
next
did
week.
it.
We'll let you
We
know.
did it again.
We did it again. Peace.
All right, later, guys.